Hey everyone, it's Maddie and B, and today we're going to be doing a summer book haul, and these are the books that we've accumulated practically since March. Hardinge sent us a copy of Flame in the Mist and Smoke in the Sun by Renee Adeyemi. This is the sequel, which I'm pretty sure comes out in June. It might already be out. I didn't love this one too much, but I might have to give this one a go now that we've been sent a copy, but I might wait to see what the reviewers of Goodreads have to say. The next couple of books are ones that we've bought specifically for Yalk this year, including I Have Lost My Way by Gayle Forman. I wasn't really expecting to like this one, seeing as I've only read one Gayle Forman book and that didn't blow my socks off, and that was years and years ago, but this one really surprised me and it ended up being a 5-star read of the month. But essentially it's about these 3 different characters who meet in one day and the friendships that form between them, and I loved it to pieces. Next I have The Fallen Children by David Owen, and I meant to buy and read this last year but never got round to it. David Owen is a UK author that's been around for quite a while, but I haven't read any of his books, and this one seems the most exciting. It's about a group of girls who after a blackout all find themselves mysteriously pregnant, which seems like the second coming of a weird alien race. Next we have Zenith by Lindsay Cummings and Sasha Alsberg. These two are both going to be at Yalk and they're the people that we're most excited to meet as collaborators. We really want to tell them about our writing journey and how much they've inspired us. C has read Zenith but I haven't, so I'm really excited to dive in, especially because this one has a lot of mixed reviewers. I want to see where I stand. Speaking of Lindsay, we also bought The Murder Complex, and I read this in our second read all day as well, so we'll leave a link in the cards for that. And I liked it enough to buy the sequel, so hopefully we can get hold of that before Yalk too. Next we have Close Your Eyes by Nicci Cloke, and this is all about a school shooting. We read this last year and her most recent release Toxic a couple of weeks ago, so we're really excited to meet this author. She's the kind of author that writes the books we love to read but would find too difficult to write ourselves. Next we have Children of Blood and Bone by Tomi Adeyemi, and this is probably the most hyped book of 2018, and I was really surprised to find out that Tomi was going to be at Yalk. I have no expectations for meeting her because the line is going to be huge, I can guarantee, but she is doing a couple of events around the UK, so if we don't get to see her at Yalk, hopefully we'll make one of those. Next we have Clean by Juno Dawson, and this was one of my most anticipated books of this year, as I read the sampler at Yalk last year, and so I've been waiting a really long time for this. It's blurbed as Girl Interrupted meets Gossip Girl. It's all about Lexi, who goes into a rehab unit after recovering from her heroin addiction. Next we have State of Sorrow by Melinda Salisbury. This is the first book in her new fantasy series and I can't wait to get round to it. We've owned it for quite a few months and I thought I would read it straight away, but then uni got in the way and now uni is over. I have no excuses, so I think I'm going to be picking this one up very soon, and I think this book has all it takes for me to like it a lot more than her original trilogy, The Sin Eater's Daughter. Next we have Sunflowers in February by Phillida Shrimpton. This is all about a girl who dies at the very beginning of the book and then goes to kind of not haunt her family but see their grieving process, kind of like Elsewhere. Those are my favourite kind of books, so I'm really excited to find another one, but it turns out that she has a twin brother, so I think this book is going to break me more than any other book, and if it had been a twin sister I definitely would not be able to read it, so small mercies. Next we have A Skinful of Shadows by Frances Hardinge. I read The Lie Tree either last year or the year before, it's been a long time anyway, and I really enjoyed her writing style. It's super atmospheric, and this is her most recent release. It's about a girl called Makepeace who is threatened by possession of spirits, and there's also a civil war happening in her town, and that makes things very uncomfortable for her and her family. Maddie hasn't read The Lie Tree and she's planning to do so on our reading double, which is happening on the 23rd and the 24th of this month, June, so make sure to clear your calendars so you can join in for a fabulous reading weekend. Now moving on to the books that we just got for fun, we have Your Turn to Die by Wallman, which we didn't really know was coming out, but we were definitely anticipating this author's next book, as we absolutely loved her previous two, and this was no exception, and read it in our first read all day of May. It was one that quickly passed hands between us so that we could talk about it, as Wallman manages to craft the absolutely perfect thriller. If you watched that read all day, you'll know the other book we swapped was Royals by Rachel Hawkins, and this was perfectly timed for the royal wedding, and it got us definitely in the mood for all that excitement, and practically straight after we binge watched the Princess Diaries movies. Can we have news about the third movie soon? Please. Next we have Truly Wildly Deeply by Jenny McLaughlin, and this is all about Annie, who has cerebral palsy, as she goes to her new 6th form. There she meets Fab, who comes from Poland, and they're paired in this English project about Wuthering Heights, which was the inspiration for this gorgeous cover. I really enjoyed this book and she's just become such an auto-buy author for me. Next we have It's a Wrap by Perdita and Honor Cargill. This is the final book in the Waiting for Callback series, and it's chocked full of laugh out loud moments. As collaborators, these two are some of our biggest inspirations, Hawkins, and I can't wait to see what they're going to write now that Electra's story is all wrapped up. They also signed the copy for us, which is super nice. Next we have Spark by Alice Broadway, which is the sequel to Ink and the second book in the Skin book trilogy. This pretty much follows the pattern of second books in dystopian series, and I really enjoyed it. Storytelling is definitely the core of the world building, and I really enjoyed that aspect. So if you like more fairy tale style books, then this is definitely for you. Next I have Scythe by Neil Shusterman, and I do believe the sequel is already out, so I need to get on this series. It's about two apprentices of, I think, death. Are they in some sort of competition to kill each other? I'm not quite sure. I want to go in as blind as I can, especially for a book that has this much buzz around it. Next I have Incarnate by Jodi Meadows, which has been on my TBR for the longest time, so I finally decided to buy it so I actually have a chance of reading it. This is all about Anna, and she lives in a world of regeneration. I think she's a soul that might be trapped in something, so it's giving me a lot of Host vibes, and I'm really excited to finally read it. If I love this one, then I'll get the rest of the books in the series because the way their covers match together is really gorgeous, and the colour story in them all is amazing. Next we have On a Scale of 1 to 10 by Ceylan Scott. This is the story of a girl who was put in a mental hospital. Inspired by the author's real life, she wrote the entirety of this novel on her phone whilst she was in a similar mental facility, and it also has trigger warnings for suicide and self-harm, so this is going to be a very harrowing read. Next we have the Did I Mention I Love You series by Estelle Mascom. I recently read the first one and loved it way more than I thought I would, so I had to invest in the whole trilogy to see where the characters end up. They're really thick books for contemporaries, so there's a lot of story crammed in, and I can't even imagine where the characters are going to be by the final book. Estelle is such an inspiration to us, as she also has a YouTube channel where she's charted her author journey. She does a couple of Write With Me videos, but what's most interesting is that she recently did a road trip around all the prominent places that appear in her series. So if you want to check those out, we'll leave those links in the description because they're guaranteed to make you want to read the series. Next we have these beautiful editions of some F. Scott Fitzgerald classics, starting with The Great Gatsby in this gorgeous purple. Next is The Beautiful and the Damned, and this is a mint green colour and has little cocktails on the front. And finally we have Tender is the Night in this light sky blue with peacock feathers on the front. Each of these books were only £2, which was an absolute steal, and they are very recent editions too. We loved their super colourful spines and can't wait to add them to our classics shelf. Then we picked up Crossed, which is the second book in the Matched trilogy by Ali Condé. This is a series that I read absolutely years ago, but I really loved it, and it was a shame that I didn't have it in physical copy, so we're slowly collecting them secondhand. Cathy Cassidy is one of our absolute favourite authors from when we were teens, and we wanted to try and collect her newer releases. So the first is Looking Glass Girl, and I read this one a couple of years ago. I do need an excuse to collect all of her other classics in these gorgeous covers because I love them so much, but for now we'll have to make do with this one, and also Broken Hearts Club. She also has Letters from Lexi, which is in a pastel purple, and that's the start of a new series, but those are slightly newer, so we'll have to wait longer, but we are slowly building up our collection again. And finally we have Rose Rivers by Jacqueline Wilson, which is her newest release and our pick of the month for our Jacqueline Wilson book club. Last month we did the Tracy Beaker trilogy, and if you want to see our discussion of that, we'll leave that in the cards and description, but we're really excited to dive into another one of her historical books, and it's kind of like a sequel or a companion novel to Clover Moon, although it's not entirely necessary to read that one, so if you haven't, don't worry, just dive into this. I'm currently 60 pages through it and loving it so much. In the first 10 pages I was already finding Rose such a relatable character, so I'm really excited to continue. So those were all the books that we have hauled in the last few months. So we're going to stop ourselves from buying any books until after Yalk at least, which is 2 months away, and hopefully we can read all of these books in preparation for that, fingers crossed. Thank you everyone so much for watching. You can follow us on Twitter and Instagram at MaddieandB, and subscribe if you haven't already. We make writing videos on Tuesdays and bookish videos on Fridays. We'll see you next time.